That motherfucking video shoot gonna be fire though. When I say I did that, I came out here and did that, and went to see the sign. But yeah, you know.
On Fox, a man is in jail tonight after being charged in the deadly shooting of a young woman in Afton. Family members are speaking out about their heartbreaking loss as the investigation unfolds. Fox News' Kelly Hoskins has more on the heartbreaking details.
My daughter was so amazing. She didn't deserve to be where she at right now.
Calvina Brooks says a family's worst nightmare is now their reality as she mourns the loss of her daughter, 25-year-old Kelsey Elem. Brooks says her daughter was full of life, now gone after a deadly act of violence. St. Louis County Police say 21-year-old Martino Lewis is charged with second-degree murder, armed criminal action, and domestic assault in connection with the death of Elem. Investigators say just after 11 p.m. last week, Lewis and Elem, who were in a dating relationship, got into a violent argument inside a home in the 5800 block of Grace Avenue in Afton. Charging documents reveal eyewitnesses overheard the fight and saw Lewis punch Elem, causing her to bleed. Moments later, police say a gunshot rang out.
My baby was taken away from me by a young man, supposed to have been her friend that she was taking care of, that she had so much, she wasn't in love or none of that. It was just about the heart and the care that she was trying to support him and help him.
Family members say Elem was a strong advocate for the transgender community and known for her kindness to strangers. The family says that Elem did not have life insurance, and a GoFundMe page has been set up to cover funeral expenses.
I'm asking everybody that could try to help with her being buried right. I really appreciate it because she don't have any insurance or anything. I mean, she just was a wonderful, wonderful person. She loved everyone. She brought out the transgenders, but she showed them and opened them up to let them know that someone out here loved all of you all.
In an era where news travels faster than understanding, a single notification can unravel lives. On a quiet April day in 2025, a headline flickered across screens in Afton, Missouri. Young woman, 25, fatally shot in local residence. The words were clinical, detached, barely hinting at the heartbreak beneath. This wasn't just a statistic, this was Kelsey Elem, a 25-year-old black transgender woman whose vibrancy and resilience defied a world that often overlooked her. Behind that fleeting headline lay a storm of grief, rage, and unanswered questions, a true crime case that exposed the lethal consequences of secrecy, shame, and societal failure. Kelsey wasn't just a name and a news ticker, she was a daughter, a confidant, a dreamer whose life was stolen in a moment of violence on April 24, 2025. Police arrived at a modest home on Whispering Oak Place to find her clinging to life, a gunshot wound ravaging her body. At the heart of the tragedy stood Martino Lewis, a 21-year-old man she'd been dating whose account of the events, an argument spiraling into fear, a firearm discharging, crumbled under scrutiny. As investigators peeled back the layers, a more sinister narrative emerged. A clandestine romance fraught with tension, a man haunted not by Kelsey herself, but by the truth of who she was, and a society that failed to protect her. This wasn't merely a homicide, it was a reckoning. Kelsey's existence as a transgender woman was an act of defiance, a testament to her courage in a world that often punishes authenticity. For Martino, that authenticity may have been a mirror he couldn't face. What unfolded inside that home? Why did a woman with dreams and determination die at the hands of someone she trusted? And how many more like her will fade into obscurity, their stories buried beneath silence? This is the true crime story of Kelsey Elem, a tale of identity, betrayal, and a life cut short before it could fully bloom. Kelsey Elementary was far more than a victim in a police report. She was a beacon of strength, a woman who navigated a world that often refused to make space for her. Born in Missouri, Kelsey entered the world with the same innocence and potential as any child, her heart brimming with hope. Her mother, Calvinita Brock, often spoke of her daughter's gentle spirit, soft-spoken yet profound, with an intuition that seemed to see through life's facades. Even as a young girl, Kelsey carried a quiet wisdom, as if she sensed the challenges awaiting her before she could name them. Beneath her serene demeanor, however, was a silent struggle. From childhood, Kelsey grappled with a truth the world wasn't ready to embrace. Her identity didn't align with the gender assigned at birth. In a society obsessed with binary labels, male or female, conform or be cast out, Kelsey's reality was a rebellion against those confines. She was transgender, her soul a vibrant tapestry that refused to fit into rigid molds. Living that truth required courage, especially in Missouri, where discussions of gender identity often lagged behind compassion and understanding. In her late teens, Kelsey embarked on her transition, a journey not just of physical transformation, but of emotional and spiritual liberation. It was a path marked by both agony and triumph. She faced rejection from those who couldn't understand, threats from those who refused to try, and isolation from a world that sometimes turned its back. Yet Kelsey pressed forward, her resilience a testament to her power. She didn't seek approval to exist. She claimed her right to be. Being a Black transgender woman in America is a daily act of bravery. In Missouri, it was like walking a tightrope over a chasm of prejudice. Every step outside her door carried risk. Every stranger's glance held the potential for hostility. Still, Kelsey moved through the world with grace, her presence a quiet defiance of the shadows that sought to dim her light. She wasn't content to merely survive. She wanted to thrive. Training to become a certified nursing assistant, Kelsey dreamed of a career where she could care for others, a reflection of the compassion she carried within. Her ambitions stretched beyond the barriers society tried to impose, her vision fixed on a future where she could flourish. Kelsey found joy in life's simple moments, styling her hair, capturing selfies that radiated confidence, and sharing uplifting quotes on social media. Her photos weren't just images. They were declarations of self-love, proof that she had fought to become the woman she was meant to be. She glowed not because she needed to prove her worth, but because she had already conquered the hardest battle, embracing her truth in a world that often rejected it. Yet that authenticity came with a price. Like many, Kelsey yearned for connection, for love that was honest and open. But in the dating world, being a trans woman, especially one unapologetic about her identity, meant navigating a minefield of secrecy. Too often, she encountered men who desired her in private, but erased her in public, whispering, "I care for you, but no one can know." That rejection stung, yet Kelsey held on to hope, dreaming of a life where love didn't demand she hide. Her mother recalled how, in the months before her death, Kelsey spoke of long-term goals, a sign she was still forging ahead, still believing in a tomorrow where she could be fully seen. When Kelsey Elem crossed paths with Martino Lewis, it wasn't the stuff of fairy tales. There were no grand gestures, no romantic dinners under starlight. Like many modern relationships, theirs began in the digital realm, tentative messages, shared connections, playful banter. But beneath the surface, Kelsey approached with caution, her experience as a trans woman teaching her to tread carefully in matters of the heart. Dating required more than attraction. It demanded vigilance, a constant reading of intentions to protect herself from harm. Martino, at 21, was younger than Kelsey, a seemingly ordinary young man from the neighborhood. His life appeared unremarkable, no criminal history, no red flags that screamed danger. He was reserved, almost invisible, a figure who preferred the edges of attention to its center. In those early days, their connection followed a familiar rhythm for Kelsey. Late-night texts, private phone calls, stolen moments behind closed doors. There were glimpses of tenderness, times when Martino seemed to see her fully. But there were also silences, moments when he pulled away, leaving her to wonder where she stood. To those who knew her best, one truth was painfully clear. Martino kept Kelsey hidden. He never shared her on social media, never brought her into his family's world. In public, they were strangers, In private, he was warm, affectionate, the mask slipping just enough to keep her hoping. For Kelsey, who had known this pattern before, it was a bittersweet dance, moments of connection tainted by the knowledge that she was a secret. Yet, like so many longing for love, she convinced herself that patience might change him, that his fear would dissolve, and they could step into the light together. But Martino's fear wasn't fleeting, it was a shadow that consumed him. He wasn't just wary of being seen with Kelsey, he was paralyzed by what her identity meant for his own. Dating a transgender woman challenged the fragile masculinity he'd been taught to protect, a societal script that branded such love as weakness. In private, he could play the role, flirting, touching, perhaps even caring in his own fractured way. But in public, he was mute, his silence a weapon that wounded them both. Secrecy in love isn't neutral, it's a prison, and over time, it began to suffocate them. As weeks turned to months, cracks formed in their fragile bond. Arguments flared, small at first, but growing sharper. Kelsey, ever courageous, began to demand more, not just love, but honesty, visibility, respect. She was weary of being invisible, of shrinking to fit his comfort. Friends later shared that she sensed a shift in Martino, a darkening in his demeanor that left her uneasy. Yet she clung to hope, believing he could overcome the shame that held him captive. But Martino was fighting a war within himself, torn between his desire for Kelsey and the terror of what that desire revealed. Society's whispers that loving a trans woman diminished him echoed in his mind, fueling a fear that would soon turn deadly. Kelsey knew the sting of being hidden all too well. Her past relationships, some kind, others cruel, often shared a common thread: secrecy. Men who cherished her in the dark but shunned her in the light. Men who held her close behind locked doors but crossed the street to avoid her in daylight. It wasn't her beauty or worth that drove them away. It was her truth as a transgender woman. In an ideal world, that truth would be celebrated. But in the real world, trans women, especially black trans women, are too often fetishized, silenced, or erased. When Kelsey began seeing Martino, she dared to hope for something different. But the old patterns resurfaced. The hushed tones, the unwritten rules, don't share, don't post, don't exist outside his terms. At first, she tried to empathize. She understood the societal pressures on black men, the toxic expectations of masculinity that branded love like theirs as taboo. She knew the slurs they faced, the judgment that could follow. But what about her safety, her own heart? Secret relationships aren't just painful, they're perilous. When someone is ashamed of you, they'll go to any lengths to bury that shame. And for Martino, that shame was unraveling him. Every time Kelsey pushed for more truth, more openness, Martino felt the walls closing in. He was a man split in two, one drawn to Kelsey's warmth, strength, and radiance, and the other gripped by fear of what that attraction meant. Experts in intimate partner dynamics note that such secrecy often breeds volatility. For trans women, relationships with cisgender men can be an emotional tightrope where shame and fear ferment into toxicity. In Kelsey's case, that toxicity was building, a pressure cooker ready to explode. By the spring of 2025, something had changed in Kelsey's world. The woman who once shared joyful selfies and hopeful words grew quieter, her light dimming under an unseen weight. Friends noticed a heaviness in her, a shadow that hadn't been there before. That shadow was Martino Lewis. Their relationship, once a delicate balance of hope and caution, was fraying. Arguments became frequent, their tone sharper, their silences heavier. Martino's behavior grew erratic, disappearing for days, returning as if nothing was wrong, only to lash out with sudden resentment. Kelsey confided in a friend that Martino was unpredictable, his temper flaring without warning. His mood swings left her on edge, his emotional distance a reminder that their love existed only in fragments. She wanted clarity, but he offered confusion. She sought love, but he imposed limits. The more she asked for honesty, the more dangerous it felt to ask. Martino's actions mirrored a chilling pattern seen in intimate partner violence: isolation, manipulation, control disguised as care, and a refusal to accept rejection. He craved dominance, silence, power. Kelsey, meanwhile, yearned for freedom, not necessarily from him, but from the lies that bound them. She wasn't demanding the impossible, only what every heart deserves: to be seen, to be valued, to be loved without shame. But in a relationship built on secrecy, even love can be perceived as a threat. And for Martino, that threat wasn't their arguments. It was Kelsey herself, her courage to live authentically a challenge he couldn't reconcile. On April 24, 2025, Kelsey Elem's story was violently torn from her. In a quiet Afton home, the fragile thread holding her and Martino together snapped. They were arguing, words escalating into something darker. A witness inside the home later recounted the horror to police. The fight turned physical, Martino's fist striking Kelsey. Her voice, once steady, cracked with fear. She pleaded with the witness to call 911, terrified that Martino would retrieve a gun. Those words, raw, desperate, were the last she'd ever speak. As the witness fumbled for the phone, a gunshot shattered the air. Moments later, Martino fled, not pausing to help, not looking back. He leapt into Kelsey's car, her car, and sped away, leaving her bleeding on the floor of the home she'd made her own. Paramedics arrived swiftly, finding Kelsey alive but fading. They rushed her to the hospital, where doctors battled to save her. But the wound was too grave, the damage irreversible. Kelsey Elem was pronounced dead, her dreams extinguished in a moment of brutality. While Kelsey fought for her life, Martino was already spinning lies. Court records reveal he handed a firearm to another witness, claiming Kelsey was shot during a drive and that he'd rushed her to the hospital. But the truth unraveled quickly. He hadn't stayed, hadn't helped. He'd run, leaving her to die alone. Police found him later that day in St. Louis City, still driving Kelsey's car. Confronted, he admitted to a physical altercation, but dodged the deeper truth, leaving it shattered like the life he'd taken. Investigators saw through his story. The evidence, witness accounts, the scene's grim details, the emotional history, painted a stark picture. This was no accident. It was the culmination of fear, control, and a frantic need to silence a truth Martino couldn't bear. For Kelsey's family, time stopped. Her mother, Calvinita, was consumed by grief, her world collapsing under the weight of loss. For the trans community, it was another wound, another sister stolen for daring to live her truth. Martino was arrested, charged with second-degree murder, armed criminal action, and domestic assault. As he sat in a cell, the question lingered. Why? Why Kelsey? Why now? Why does authenticity still carry a death sentence? In the aftermath, tributes flooded in, online, in vigils, in tear-streaked streets. Kelsey's name became a rallying cry, a symbol of love warped by shame into something lethal. While her family planned a funeral, the world began to grapple with her loss. When Martino Lewis was handcuffed on April 24, 2025, the justice system took over, methodical, impersonal, and too late. Booked into St. Louis County Jail, he faced charges of second-degree murder, armed criminal action, and domestic assault. The legal language was cold, but the reality was searing. Martino wasn't just a suspect. He was a man who'd erased a life, a man whose secret romance ended in bloodshed when it threatened to be exposed. As the case entered the courts, the public watched, some hungering for justice, others seeking clarity. In early hearings, Martino appeared detached, his face a blank mask. His defense offered no motive, no remorse, only a flimsy claim of a dispute gone awry, an impulsive act. But Kelsey's family saw through the narrative. This wasn't a fleeting moment. It was the inevitable end of a relationship poisoned by shame. Calvinita, shattered yet resolute, vowed her daughter's name wouldn't fade. "It feels like a nightmare," she told reporters, her voice breaking. This wasn't her fate. In Missouri, second-degree murder carries a heavy penalty, but not always life without parole. For the LGBTQ+ community, this sparked fear. Would Kelsey's case be treated with the gravity it deserved, or would she become another trans victim dismissed by a system that often undervalues them? Online, debates raged, some defending Martino, others condemning him. But the noise often drowned out Kelsey's humanity, her right to love and live without paying with her life. Martino remained silent, offering no apology, no reflection. The hearings plodded on. Motions, dates, evidence. For Kelsey's family, each step was agony, a reminder of their loss, a mother burying her daughter, a community mourning a sister. The justice system could punish a crime, but it couldn't mend a mother's heart, couldn't erase the violence, couldn't bring Kelsey back. Kelsey Elem's murder didn't end in that Afton home. Its ripples spread far beyond. In the streets, candlelight vigils glowed, her smiling photo lifted high by loved ones and strangers alike. They weren't just grieving, they were demanding the world see her. LGBTQ+ advocates called her death part of a grim pattern, trans women, particularly black trans women, targeted and erased. This violence wasn't random. It was rooted in a system that thrives on silence, from families, communities, and men who love in secret but fear being seen. Kelsey's story exposed a culture that devalues trans women, shames men into hiding, and punishes authenticity with death. It forced hard questions. Why are trans lives still disposable? Why does love cost some their lives? What will it take to end this cycle? Her death wasn't just a personal tragedy, it was a call to confront uncomfortable truths. This story isn't just a true crime case, it's a plea for change. You don't need to be an advocate to act, just care enough to speak, listen, and protect. Kelsey Elem deserved love without shame, a life without fear. Her story ends here, but its impact depends on us. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. You can also do well to check out our well-curated playlist. The link is in the description. We upload new true crime content daily, covering cases you know and many you don't. Stick with us as we bring you more stories that deserve to be heard.